Black cleaning lady discovers her own photo framed in billionaire's private office. Lena had been cleaning the sprawling mansion of billionaire Thomas Granger for years, always following the same routine, never questioning too much. But one day, as she dusted the towering shelves in his private office, a glint of something caught her eye, a photo. It wasn't one of the many high-profile business meetings, nor the family portraits that lined the walls. No, this photo was different. It was a faded picture of a young woman, smiling, full of life. Lena froze. That woman was her. Her heart skipped a beat. How could her picture be here, in Thomas Granger's office? And why hadn't she ever noticed it before? A wave of confusion and disbelief washed over her, but one thing was certain, she needed answers. Where are you watching from? I'm so curious to know how many of you have ever stumbled upon something that changed everything. Lena had been working as a cleaning lady for Thomas Granger for more years than she cared to count. His mansion, a sprawling estate on the edge of the city, was a place of grandeur and quiet solitude. She had always kept to herself, a small figure blending into the background, scrubbing floors and dusting shelves in silence. The family, and especially Thomas himself, were rarely around, leaving Lena to do her job unnoticed. She had accepted this reality, content in the simplicity of her work. There was comfort in the predictability of her routine. But that day, something was different. The photograph that caught her eye wasn't one of the many lavish events or corporate galas that filled the walls of the office. It was a faded, modest picture of a young woman, smiling brightly as if frozen in a simpler time. It wasn't a posed photo from a high society affair. No, this was personal. A picture of someone who had once meant something to someone. A sense of familiarity stirred in Lena's chest as she stared at the face in the photo. Her own face. The realization hit her like a sharp breath of cold air. She had worked for Thomas Granger for so long and had never once seen this photo, yet it was sitting proudly in his private office. How could she have missed it? How could she not have noticed the one thing that connected her so intimately to this man? The man who had always kept his distance, who had paid her for her services and nothing more. Her hands trembled as she carefully dusted around the frame, her mind racing. Why was this photograph in his office? Why hadn't he ever mentioned it? Lena had never spoken much to Thomas. She never crossed into his world. He was the powerful billionaire, and she was just the woman who cleaned his floors. But this was too much to ignore. The questions gnawed at her. She spent the rest of that day in a haze, her movements mechanical as she cleaned. But her mind was elsewhere. Her thoughts kept returning to the photo. It wasn't just about the picture, it was about what it symbolized. Why did Thomas have her photo? Was it a mistake, a forgotten relic, or something more? When she returned home that evening, the house felt emptier than ever. The small apartment was cold and quiet, the silence almost deafening. Lena sat on her couch, staring at the walls, her fingers absently tracing the worn edges of a photograph of her own, a picture of her younger self and her mother, taken long before she'd ever heard of Thomas Granger. She looked at it for a long moment, wondering what her life might have been like had things been different. But the photo in Thomas's office, the one of her smiling face, seemed to demand more than just idle curiosity. The next day, Lena stood outside Thomas's office, her heart pounding in her chest. Her mind had been running circles, trying to prepare herself for what might come. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, answers, confrontation, or something else entirely. But there was something in her that told her this moment could change everything. Her hand hovered over the door handle for a long time before she finally opened it. The room was exactly as she remembered it, vast, cold, and clinical in its luxury. The leather chairs and glass tables, the shelves lined with expensive trinkets, and the impeccable decor that spoke of wealth and power. But today, it felt different. Today, it felt like the walls themselves were watching her. She walked in, her steps slow, deliberate, each one heavy with the weight of what she was about to ask. Thomas was there, sitting at his desk, as he always was, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his expression as unreadable as ever. He looked up as she entered, his eyes momentarily softening before he quickly masked any emotion. He had always been distant, professional, never crossing that invisible line between employer and employee. Lena stood there, unsure of how to begin, her thoughts jumbled. For a moment, all she could hear was the sound of her own breathing, shallow and nervous. "I saw something today," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "A photograph. It's of me. In your office." Thomas didn't react immediately. His gaze flickered briefly to the photo in question, and then back to her. "I see," he said quietly, his voice calm but carrying an undertone that Lena couldn't quite place. "How did you come across it?" Lena hesitated. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is why you have it there." For the first time, Thomas's face seemed to soften, just a little. He put down the pen he'd been holding and leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her. "Lena," he began slowly, "there's something I need to tell you." Lena's heart skipped. There it was, the moment she had both feared and anticipated. She had no idea what he was going to say, but she knew it had to be something big. Something life-changing. "I'm your father," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. The words hit Lena like a tidal wave, knocking the breath out of her lungs. She stumbled backward, her hands gripping the back of a chair for support. "What? What do you mean? You're my father." She shook her head in disbelief, her mind racing to make sense of it. This man, this billionaire, the one who had hired her, paid her, and kept his distance all these years, he was her father? It didn't make sense. She had spent her life without him, had grown up with her mother, who had always spoken of him with bitterness and anger. And now, after all these years, he was standing here, telling her he was her father? Thomas sighed, a deep, weary sigh. "I know this is a lot to take in. But I've kept my distance for a reason. I thought it was better for you to have a life without me in it. I stayed away because I believed I would only make things harder for you. I didn't want to disrupt your life, Lena." Lena's chest tightened as a wave of anger and confusion washed over her. "You left us," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You just left my mother and me. How could you do that?" Thomas looked down at his hands, visibly struggling with the weight of his words. "I never wanted to leave you. But sometimes, the decisions we make aren't as clear as we'd like them to be. I thought that stepping away would give you a better chance at happiness. I've always watched over you, from a distance. But I never intended to hurt you." Lena's heart was torn. She didn't know how to feel. She wanted to hate him, to scream at him for abandoning her mother and her, for making the choices that led to so much pain. But there was something in his eyes, something that told her he was telling the truth, or at least part of it. For the first time in years, Lena allowed herself to feel vulnerable. The anger, the confusion, and the hurt all swirled inside her, but there was also something else, a flicker of hope. Could she forgive him? Could she allow this stranger to become her father again? The days after Lena's confrontation with Thomas Granger were a blur. She continued her work at the mansion, but her mind was miles away. Each time she walked past his office, her eyes would inevitably drift toward that photograph, her own face smiling back at her, as though frozen in time, waiting for her to understand something she hadn't yet been able to grasp. The words he had spoken still echoed in her mind. "I'm your father." They felt unreal, like something out of a dream. She had spent so many years thinking of him as a distant figure, an impossible part of her past, but here he was. And yet, the confusion lingered. Could she accept him after all this time? Could she forgive him for the years of silence, the absence, the abandonment? Lena's mind wrestled with these questions, torn between the longing for a father she had never known and the anger that simmered beneath the surface. The bond that should have existed between them was fractured, like a shattered vase that could never be put back together in quite the same way. But despite her feelings of betrayal, there was a part of her that wanted to believe Thomas, wanted to believe that he had truly cared, that his reasons for staying away had been out of a misguided sense of love. At night, after another long day of cleaning the mansion, Lena would sit by the window of her modest apartment, looking out at the city below. The streets were bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, and the distant hum of traffic seemed to carry with it a sense of finality. She thought of her mother, who had raised her on her own after Thomas had disappeared. Her mother had never spoken much about him, only a few bitter words here and there about the man who had left them with nothing. Lena had grown up believing that her father was a man who had simply walked away, not looking back. Now, with the truth in front of her, she didn't know what to think. Was he the same man who had left them to fend for themselves, or had time changed him? Had he really been watching over her all these years, as he claimed, or had he just been another distant figure, lurking in the shadows of her life? One evening, she received a message from Thomas. It was short, but its implications were profound. "Lena, I understand if you're not ready to talk. But I hope you'll give me a chance to prove that I'm here now, that I want to be part of your life." The words pulled at her heartstrings, but they also made her angry. How dare he ask for a chance after all this time? It wasn't that simple. How could she trust him when he had been absent for so many years? But even as the anger burned in her chest, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of something else. Hope, maybe. A tiny hope that, just maybe, there could be a chance for them to rebuild what had been broken. The next morning, as Lena made her way to work, she found herself walking with a heavy heart. The air was crisp, the autumn breeze tugging at the edges of her jacket. She passed the familiar storefronts and cafes, the same path she had walked countless times before. But today, everything felt different. Today, her world had shifted on its axis. She was no longer just a cleaning lady at Thomas Granger's mansion. She was the daughter of the man who owned it. When she arrived at the mansion, she hesitated outside his office, her hand once again hovering over the door handle. She had spent so many years in this place, yet it felt like she was stepping into a new world. A world where Thomas wasn't just her employer, but her father. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Thomas was sitting at his desk, looking as composed as ever. But this time, there was something different in his demeanor. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. "Lena," he said softly, his voice low but full of emotion. "I know it's been a lot to take in, and I understand if you're angry with me. I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm here now. I'm here for you." Lena stood still for a moment, unsure of what to say. The anger, the hurt, the confusion, it was all still there, bubbling beneath the surface. But she couldn't deny the ache in her chest, the pull towards him that had been there all along, even when she didn't know it. "I don't know what to think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent my whole life wondering where you were. Why didn't you come back? Why did you leave?" Thomas sighed, his eyes filled with regret. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was giving you the space to grow without the complications of my presence. I was wrong, Lena. I was a coward. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to be the father you deserved." Her breath caught in her throat as she processed his words. The years of anger, of unanswered questions, seemed to dissolve just a little. But the pain, the scars, were still there. She had built her life without him, and now that he was here, trying to make amends, it felt overwhelming. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Lena said, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can just let go of everything that's happened." Thomas nodded, understanding. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." Lena looked at him for a long moment, the silence stretching between them. Her heart felt heavy, yet there was a part of her that couldn't help but feel something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Maybe, just maybe, there could be a chance for them to rebuild what had been lost. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Sometimes, the hardest thing is learning to forgive, but it's also the most powerful. As Lena stood there, her mind racing, Thomas's phone rang. His expression shifted instantly from calm to concern. "Excuse me, I need to take this," he said, stepping out of the room. Lena was left alone, the weight of the conversation pressing down on her. But as she glanced toward the photo on the desk, her photo, she realized that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The days after the conversation with Thomas were a blur. Lena couldn't shake the weight of his words, nor could she forget the conflicted emotions swirling inside her. The fact that he had returned to her life after all these years was a lot to process. Her heart wavered between anger, fear, and a deep, painful longing for something she had always dreamed of, a father who would care for her, who would be there, who would love her. But just as quickly as the flicker of hope had appeared, doubt returned, swirling like a storm on the horizon. Was this real? Was he truly sincere, or was he just trying to ease his own guilt for years of absence? Over the next few days, Thomas tried reaching out to Lena again. Small gestures at first, offering her a coffee when she came to clean the mansion, asking if she needed anything for herself. But each time, she hesitated. It wasn't that she didn't want to connect with him, it was that the pain of being abandoned for so long was too great. One morning, as Lena dusted the bookshelves in the hallway, she saw Thomas coming down the stairs, his face etched with worry. He stopped just short of her, his eyes meeting hers with a softness that made her chest tighten. "Lena," he began, his voice gentle. "I need to talk to you." She could sense the urgency in his tone, and followed him into his office. Her mind raced. She was unsure of what he was about to say, but the unease growing in her gut told her that it wasn't going to be easy. "Lena, there's something you need to know," Thomas said, sitting down at his desk and looking up at her. His hands were tense, his fingers clenching the arms of the chair. "I've made some decisions recently, decisions I thought would be in your best interest. But now, I realize they've only made things more complicated." Lena's heart beat faster. Her body tensed. She wasn't sure what to expect. Was this the moment he would turn away, just as he had years ago? "What are you talking about?" Lena asked, her voice shaking slightly. "There's something about the way I've kept myself out of your life, something I should have done differently." His voice faltered. "The truth is, I've been battling with myself, wondering if I should tell you the rest." Lena felt a knot form in her stomach. Something in his words sent a chill through her. "You don't have to tell me anything if you're not ready," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. "I'm not sure I can handle any more secrets." Thomas stood up, pacing in front of his desk. His eyes were fixed on the floor, and for the first time since she had met him, Lena saw a glimpse of vulnerability. "I never meant for things to go this way. But now it's too late." His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been tracking you, watching over you in secret. I made sure you had everything you needed, even though I wasn't there." Lena's breath caught. "What do you mean? Watching me?" Her voice was thick with disbelief. "You've been watching me? All these years, you've been there, just watching? Like a stranger?" Her words were like daggers, the hurt she'd buried for so long bubbling to the surface. Thomas's face twisted with regret. "Yes," he admitted, his voice full of sorrow. "But not because I wanted to hurt you. I wanted to be a part of your life, but I couldn't bring myself to face you, to face what I had done." Lena's mind spun. This revelation, the fact that he had been silently watching over her, made her feel more like an object to be monitored rather than a daughter to be loved. How could he have stayed away for so long, all the while keeping an eye on her? How was that love? "I don't understand," Lena said, her voice breaking. "You never came for me, never even tried to call. And now you tell me you've been watching me like I'm some kind of project? Is that what I am to you?" Thomas's expression darkened, his guilt evident. "No, Lena. You're not a project. But I was scared. Scared of ruining everything for you. Scared that I would only cause you more pain." Lena's fists clenched at her sides, her face flushed with a mix of anger and hurt. The pain of being abandoned for so long, the emptiness that had defined so many of her years, now felt even sharper. How could he have kept all of this from her? How could he have stayed away when he had the power to reach out? "But you don't understand," Thomas continued, his voice pleading. "I thought the best way to love you was to give you space, to let you have a life without me in it. Without you in it, Lena repeated bitterly, her voice rising. You didn't love me, Thomas. You left me and my mom to fend for ourselves. You didn't give us space. You abandoned us. And now you think it's all going to be okay. Lena's words hung in the air like a heavy weight, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was suffocating, full of unspoken truths and broken pieces. I don't know how to fix this, Thomas said quietly, his voice defeated. I can't undo the past. But I need you to know that I never stopped thinking about you. Lena stared at him, the mix of emotions inside her raging like a storm. She wanted to scream at him, to throw everything she had at him. But more than that, she wanted the truth. She wanted the man standing before her to understand the depth of the hurt he had caused. And I don't know if I can forgive you, she said softly, her eyes filled with tears that she had fought so hard to keep hidden. I don't know if I can just let go of all the years I've spent without you. You took that from me. Thomas's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, Lena saw the rawness of his regret. The man who had seemed so untouchable, so distant, was finally broken in front of her. And in that moment, as he stood before her, she realized that her father, her real father, wasn't a figure from her past to be resurrected. He was a man who had made mistakes, just like anyone else. Have you ever faced a situation like this? A time when someone's absence left a mark that was hard to heal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you've dealt with difficult decisions and forgiveness. Lena turned her back to him, wiping the tears from her eyes, but as she headed for the door, she heard a sound, a soft knock. Lena, Thomas said, his voice filled with emotion. Please don't go. Not yet. I can't lose you again. Her hand rested on the door handle, her heart aching. What was the right choice? Could she walk away, or would she stay and finally confront the truth of what had been lost all these years? Lena stood with her hand on the door handle, her heart racing. Thomas's voice, filled with so much emotion, echoed in the space between them. Please don't go. Not yet. I can't lose you again. His words were heavy, thick with desperation, and for the first time since she had entered this mansion, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: vulnerability. She stood still for a long moment, her mind pulling her in different directions. On one side, there was the desire to walk away, to escape the turmoil and the rawness of everything. After all, leaving had been easier. It had been easier to grow up angry and resentful, to bury the truth deep inside her and never confront it. But on the other side, there was a pull, a deep yearning for connection, for answers, for reconciliation. Could she really walk away from the possibility of something more? Could she close the door on this second chance? She turned slowly, her eyes meeting Thomas's. There was no arrogance now, no distance. His face was filled with regret and hope, a combination so raw that it almost broke her heart. She had never seen him like this, vulnerable, regretful, human. And for the first time, she could see the man behind the suit, the billionaire who had been hiding from life, afraid of making the same mistakes twice. Why did you never try to come back? Lena's voice was soft but filled with hurt. Why wait until now? Thomas's eyes fell to the ground. I thought I was protecting you. I thought that you were better off without me. I couldn't face what I had done. And I was afraid that you wouldn't want me in your life. Did you ever think about what I wanted? Lena asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and pain. Did you ever think that I might have wanted my father? That I might have needed you all these years? Thomas's face softened. Every day, Lena. Every day, I thought about you. I never wanted to hurt you. But I thought you were better off without me. He took a step toward her. I was wrong. I should have been there. I should have never left you. Lena's heart wavered, torn between the years of hurt and the man standing before her, so broken and full of regret. His words reached her, but could they heal the wounds that had festered for so long? She crossed the room slowly, each step heavy with the weight of everything they had been through. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay, she said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. You can't just erase the past. It doesn't work like that. I know, Thomas whispered, his voice full of sorrow. I know that. But I'm asking for a chance. A chance to prove that I'm here now. That I want to make things right. I can't change the past, but I want to be a part of your future. Lena stood in front of him, her heart pounding in her chest. The man who had been a shadow in her life for so long was finally standing before her, vulnerable, remorseful, and offering something that she had wanted for so many years. Answers, closure, a chance to rebuild what had been broken. But could she trust him? Could she let him back in after everything? There was a long silence between them. Thomas didn't move, didn't speak, just waiting for her to make the decision. Lena could feel the weight of the moment, the years of pain, the years of silence. She could feel it all pressing down on her, demanding an answer. Her eyes searched his, looking for any hint of insincerity. But there was nothing. No lies, no excuses, just a man who had made a mistake and was trying to make amends. For the first time, Lena realized that Thomas wasn't just the man who had abandoned her. He was a man who had been trying, in his own way, to watch over her. He had been a ghost in the background, afraid to get too close, afraid of disrupting her life. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lena said, her voice shaking. I don't know if I can forget everything that happened. But I also don't know if I want to keep carrying this weight on my own anymore. I don't want to be angry anymore. I just want peace. Thomas's eyes filled with emotion. I don't expect forgiveness, Lena. I just want you to know that I'm here. And if you ever want to rebuild what we lost, I'll be waiting. Lena's heart felt like it was finally breathing again. It wasn't a full resolution, not yet, but it was the beginning of something. She didn't know what the future held, or if she would ever fully forgive him. But for the first time in years, she felt a sense of release. The past was still there, but maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to define her future. If you've been following this journey with Lena, don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Let's continue to explore life's challenges, second chances, and the power of forgiveness together. As Lena stood there, her heart still racing, a soft knock at the door interrupted the moment. It was a simple sound, but in that quiet room, it felt monumental. Lena turned toward the door, knowing that whatever happened next, it would be the beginning of something new. Something she never expected, but something she was willing to embrace. Lena's hand rested on the door handle, her heart heavy with everything Thomas had shared. Just as she was about to walk away, another knock echoed softly through the room. It was Grace, her longtime co-worker, who had always been a quiet support for Lena, but never more so than in this moment. Grace stepped inside with a warm, reassuring smile. I heard about everything, Lena. You don't have to go through this alone. Lena's breath caught. The simple kindness of Grace's words cracked through the walls of hesitation she'd built around her heart. She had spent so many years bearing her pain in silence, but now, for the first time, someone else was offering to share it with her. I'm trying, Lena whispered, looking down. But I'm so lost. Grace placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You don't need all the answers right now. Just take it one step at a time. You've already done the hardest part, acknowledging the truth. Lena's heart softened. She turned to Thomas, who had stood quietly, observing the exchange. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, she said to him, her voice filled with quiet resolution. But I can try. I can take one step forward, with you. Thomas nodded, his eyes full of hope. That's all I ask. I'll be here, whenever you're ready. Lena smiled, her face warm with a new sense of peace. Maybe that's all I need. To know you're here. Looking at the photo of herself on Thomas's desk, the one that had started it all, Lena felt the weight of the past lift just a little. She had spent years carrying the anger and confusion of abandonment, but now, she was ready to move forward, not with certainty, but with the hope that healing was possible. Grace squeezed Lena's shoulder gently. One day at a time, Lena. And you're not alone in this. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you've been touched by Lena's journey, please like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. Let's keep moving forward together. As Lena looked out the window at the world beyond, she knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But for the first time, she didn't have to walk it alone. And that thought gave her the strength to face whatever came next. Thank you for being part of this story. Remember, every step counts. Take care, and keep moving forward with love.